previous presentation introduced you to our fifth principle, the principle of fidelity. It points to our obligation to be faithful to our commitments and role responsibilities. The basic idea is that we have an obligation to meet people's legitimate expectations of us based on specific commitments we have made and the roles we assume in relation to them. We saw that the principle is general, like all the other principles. It applies to all people and to all people equally, in the sense that all of us ought to live up to all other people's legitimate expectations of us. But it's specific in that those legitimate expectations vary from person to person, depending on the commitments we have made and the particular roles we assume in relation to them. Dr. William F. May, formerly a professor of theological ethics at Southern Methodist University and other places, has defined two models for understanding role responsibilities or professional responsibilities that are very helpful in terms of illuminating the nature of those responsibilities. He distinguishes between what he calls a contract model and, by contrast, a covenantal model for understanding role responsibilities or professional responsibilities. When we sign a contract with someone, our responsibilities related to that contract and specific to that contractual relationship are, according to May, intentionally created. As such, one's obligations are specified by the agreement between the parties involved. Whatever the agreement was determines the exact shape of each party's obligations. In that sense, in a contractual relationship, one's obligations are clearly defined. There is no doubt or no ambiguity about them. May says that contractual relationships are limited ones in that when one fulfills the specific obligations that one has under the contract, the relationship is ended. It's over. Of course, so long as the other party also fulfills their obligations under the contract. Because our relationship is limited, May contends contractual relationships do not define our personal identity. Covenantal relationships are also intentionally created in that we make choices that engage us in the relationship. But here he says, May says, that the intentionality is less clear. There's a sense in which we find ourselves, as a result of the decisions we have made, in a relationship with another that we never clearly or unambiguously chose. Now, the most important difference probably between contractual and covenantal relationships is that in a covenantal relationship, the obligations are not necessarily defined by the parties to the relationship. Rather, May suggests they are socially defined or defined from outside of the particular people involved in the relationship. Moreover, those obligations are less clear than contractual ones. There's an open-ended or maybe even nearly limitless element to the possible obligations that people in a covenantal relationship may have to each other. Finally, though maybe less important, May argues that in a covenantal relationship, the relationship never really ends. It's an ongoing relationship between the two parties defined by their roles. And because of this nearly limitless nature of the relationship, personal identities are clearly shaped by the relationship in a way that they are not in a contractual one. As the name implies, the contractual model draws upon our understanding of the promises that are made between two parties when they form a contract with each other. Clearly, the contract defines the particular obligations. And when those obligations are fulfilled, the contract ends and the relationship is over. Maybe the best way to think of covenants is to think about marriages. Marriages are like covenants in that the two parties to the marriage do not define the terms of their relationship. Rather, there's a societal definition of what marriage is about. Consider this example. If I were to propose to someone suggesting a 5-year contract and proposing that our marriage be one in which I was allowed to have several outside sexual partners, I think even if someone agreed to that, we would say, wait a minute, you aren't married. That's not what a marriage is. Society defines what a marriage is. And consider the traditional marriage vow, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. That's a pretty open-ended commitment. The exact responsibilities that one will have in the marriage are not spelled out in the particular commitment one makes. It's open-ended. Now, the question that May raises, and the question that his distinction between contracts and covenants raises, is which one is a better way of understanding professional roles or responsibilities? I should be faithful to people's legitimate expectations of me as a professor or in whatever role I play. Now, do I understand the nature of those obligations in contractual terms or covenantal terms? May suggests that the covenantal model is preferable. And the basic idea is this, and let me offer you this example. I have certain responsibilities to you, and you have certain expectations of me that we have never specifically or intentionally or clearly agreed upon. But where did you get those expectations? Well, you got them because we have a vaguely defined but shared societal sense of what the proper relationship and role of a professor to a student is. We have a societally defined set of expectations that determine what is a good teacher. I would argue I have the obligation to live up to those expectations, even though you and I never specifically agreed to them. And the same would be the case with doctor-patient relations and a variety of other professional client relationships. This concludes the second part of our discussion of the principle of fidelity. Next time, we're going to look at a particular issue related to this principle, having to do with its overlap with the other four principles. That will be next time.